If your childhood was anything like mine, then you know what it's like to grow up without having all of the things that you want. You probably know what it feels like to not have the coolest sneakers or have the latest video games or even go to the greatest theme parks like Six Flags or Dorney Park. You probably didn't always have the coolest clothes, and you probably had parents who, although they didn't specifically tell you this, they were really struggling just to get by, living from paycheck to paycheck and reserving every penny for the bare essentials. So then you grow up and you finally get an opportunity to get out in the world and start making your own money. And you get to a point in life where you realize you finally have the power to get all of those things that you wanted as a kid. And that feeling is absolutely intoxicating. Thus, the collecting journey begins.
Am I not supposed to get the wizard? What has happened?
Despite having parents who were abhorrently against video games, I was lucky enough to have a brother who defied the laws of the household and decided that I deserved a Game Boy. And so back in the early 90s, he walked me down to our local Toys R Us and got me my very first Nintendo Game Boy. And ever since then, video games were a part of my life. But the Game Boy was the only console that I had for a long time. And so while everyone else was getting their Super Nintendos and their Sega Genesis and their PlayStations and their Sega Saturns and their N64s, I was still left playing my original Game Boy. Now, don't get me wrong. I had tons of fun with that thing, and the memories that I have with that Game Boy will last me for my entire life. The nights that I would have to sneak off into the bathroom to get a little bit of light so I could play Metroid 2, or sweating bullets trying to make it to the end of Mega Man 3. I mean, those were the days. However, I always knew that there was something more. I knew that there were more consoles. I knew there were more gaming experiences to be had. I just wasn't able to have them at the time. But luckily, as I got older, I was able to get a few jobs at a couple fast food restaurants. And that was when I slowly began to build a broader and more robust collection. Starting with the Super Nintendo and games like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, Contra 3, Castlevania, and the list goes on. Eventually, I moved my way up to the 5th generation, got a PlayStation. Battle Arena Toshinden, Klonoa were some of the first games I played there, and then I got a Nintendo 64 and decided that I would get all 120 stars in Super Mario 64. But once the 5th, or I guess you could say the 6th generation came around, that was when my collecting journey slowly began to fall to the wayside. Because you see, around high school was when I got my very first GameCube. And during those days, I played a lot of NBA 2K and Madden, and I would eventually dabble into other genres of video games, including certain RPGs. And I was playing a lot of video games, but I wasn't able to maintain my collection because I had to start focusing on college. And I knew that I wouldn't be staying local and that college was where I was going to actually learn some life lessons about growing up, coming of age, and actually being an adult. And it was during this transition that my collecting journey hit a hard pause. And then COVID-19 happened. And for the next 5 years, I went on a hell of a collecting run.
Rest unto your souls.
What started off as a few pickups here and there eventually turned into these weekly game hunting runs where I would scour all of my local mom and pop shops, my thrift stores, my pawn shops, and eventually GameStop. And it became this weekly ritual where I would just be hunting for deals, looking for video games that I remembered as a child, but also trying to see how cheap I could find them for. And when you live in a big city, finding anything for cheap is nearly impossible. But that just made the hunt that much more rewarding. And then, of course, there was the constant YouTube feedback loop, where after each and every hunt, I would jump online to find all of my online friends finding their own deals in their local cities and in their local neighborhoods. And it just became this really awesome community where we would all just share what we found that week and talk about the games that we were playing and reminisce what it was like to have these games or see these games back in the early 90s or even the early 2000s. And it was just this really awesome time for a while. And this lasted pretty much from once I started getting back into collecting around the time of COVID all the way up through until around 2024. Because during all of the collecting, there were a few major things that were happening behind the scenes. I wound up having a child, and then I wound up having another child. And behind all of that, I started a few businesses, and as the country started to open back up and people were able to go back outside, I found myself doing more than just game hunting. I found myself being pulled away once again from a hobby that I truly loved, and I found other passions and other responsibilities calling my name. There's a saying that says, "To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose." And I believe that life comes at you in waves. Sometimes you're able to predict those waves, and sometimes you can't. But I believe this same way that video games slowly made their way into the background of my life at the point of my college years, video games are also starting to fade into the background at the point where I'm at in life today. And that's okay, because there are other passions, there are other responsibilities, there are other things that I have to get to, but I know in the back of my mind that video games will always be there for me, just like they were there for me at the start of the pandemic. But now, I've got a new passion. I've got new horizons and new things that I need to conquer. But I'm sure when I'm ready to return, video games will be there for me again, and the collection will only be better.